All right. Welcome, welcome, my friends. Welcome, welcome. Just gonna settle in here for a minute. We'll get started very shortly. If you guys wouldn't mind, let me know how the sound is. Can you hear everything clearly? Been awake for like 4 hours. I think this is the first time I've used my voice for anything other than to yell at my dog. So, I'm waking up the voice a little bit. I just got a new cup of coffee going, so hopefully we'll be awake and caffeinated for the stream today. But yeah, hopefully everyone's doing well. This new YouTube chat feature is wild with I don't know how this works. Why some of you guys are number 1 and some of you number 2 or whatever, but all right. Let us do a little bit of this and get started. All right, so I'm just gonna check out chat. We'll get started here in just 30 seconds to a minute. If you're new, I do the same kind of formatting every week. We start off with the high time frame Bitcoin, work our way down into lower time frames, then we attack alts. My plans are always Bitcoin centric, so that's definitely what you can expect today. I will be doing an updated plan on altcoins because I've been basically ignoring altcoins for like 6 months, give or take. So I'm going to share my updated plans on that. And yeah, last thing before I actually get started is I've been working on some new education for you guys. So I already have the first video done. Working on the second video now. Kind of trying to decide how I want to do this. Do I want to just put one video out at a time, or do I want to kind of accumulate several of them and then kind of rapid fire them on you guys? Probably do somewhere in between those two ideas, but I kind of realized I haven't made any YouTube specific education in a long time, so I'm gonna bring that back. So I do have the first video, which I'm really happy with how it's turned out. It's all gonna be everything will be order flow and VWAP and profile centric topics. I just made a flow video. I'm really happy with it though, so I think that you guys will love it, and I think that it will be something that will help a lot of you guys kind of make big progress, right? So that's going to be a big goal for me over the next couple of months. Definitely keep an eye out for the new education. Okay, let me just check chat. What up to all the regular faces? What up? Thanks for asking about the pup, Nelly. Pup is doing good. Pup had a minor surgery last week. Pretty standard outpatient type shit. And yeah, he's doing good. Keeping him calm. He's not supposed to be running around and playing. That's been the hardest part, is just keeping him calm. Fees on scalping are killing me on the lowest tier. What should I do? Well, generally speaking, everything is 30-month or 30-day volume weighted, so you got to get your volume up to reduce your fees. You need to trade wider rotations, right? Realistically, if fees are hurting you guys, there's something really wrong, right? Standard taker fees, I think these days are something like 5 basis points. So if 0.05% on the entry and exit is really getting in the way of your profitability, you need to be trading larger moves. What up, Zach? Magus mode. What up, Daytona? Daytona is one of the few people that has recognized the Giga Alpha on my Twitter that I've shared. There's been a repeatable pattern on my Twitter for a few years now, probably, about how I clout collect, and it's actually like a tradable thing. I don't really point it out that often, but the reason why it is repeatable is because I'm super self-aware, so I know when I start to get excited about things that it's about time for the trade to go the other way. So study my Twitter feed. All right, guys, so let me go ahead and get focused up. I'm gonna get locked in here. What up, Fern? I haven't seen you in a minute. All right, so let's get into some stuff here, right? Today, the theme of today is going to be, summertime plans. It's going to be more or less a continuation of what we've already been talking about, but we'll get into some stuff here. So sit back, nerds, and let's lock in. Let's pretend that we know what we're talking about for 20 minutes now. So on the macro time frame, no dramatic changes, right? The overall thesis is that, we're right in the middle of summertime now, or I guess technically, I don't know if Q3 is actually the start of summertime. It's not it's not summertime for me, I'll tell you that. But the main idea, right, is that I don't expect a lot of momentum to exist right now, right? I am macro bullish through and through. I don't really see a whole lot of bearish higher time frame scenarios playing out. Sure, I've got a couple of them in the back of my mind, but I really weight the highest probabilities of us trading a lot higher later this year. So that's where everything's at for me. Excuse me. From a positioning standpoint, very, very heavily consolidated around Bitcoin. That has been the trend for me all year long, ever since, we got really frothy in December of last year. Have transitioned, more and more weighting over towards Bitcoin. Because the logic here is I am spot long across the board on Bitcoin and no derivative positioning, right? I closed out I had a sweet little swing long trade from 100K to 110K. We closed that out last week. And right now I'm just spot long because the truth is that I don't know, right? The question for me, what I'm high conviction on is two things. One, that we're going to go up higher from here. And two is that we are probably not going to see that momentum just yet. So we're probably in more of a range bound environment, right? Seeing this, larger range continue to play out. These are the two things that I'm the most confident on. Where my confidence fades and where the planning for multiple scenarios kind of takes over is the idea of I don't know how low could we go, right? Are we going to go this low, right? Are we going to go this low? Are we going to go this low, right? These are essentially what, it's like either we are really shallow and we're a lot stronger than anybody imagines, right? We do the kind of expected situation, which honestly, this is what I think is the most likely as us trading back just under 100K. But let's game theorize that a little bit. If that's the most expected, most kind of common sense thing, then honestly, it's actually probably us being shallow or us much deeper, right? So those are the kind of main, buy the dip scenarios that you're looking for. I've been saying this a lot, but if you get an opportunity to buy a dip, whether that's, a more shallow dip or a deeper dip, right? In Q3, if you get this opportunity and you don't take it, you will regret it. You will definitely be regretting it when it's November and everybody's celebrating and you're not, right? And you're trying to play catch-up longs on your shitty altcoins and, it's just not going, as planned for you, right? So you need to plan this shit out well in advance and be confident that if we actually do something like this, you better, just don't be a pussy about it, right? That's more or less it for the kind of main macro, thoughts. While we remain in summertime, I'm going to be, I'm still in work mode. I already kind of went through my vacation stage earlier in the year. So I'm still in work mode right now, but I'm not really doing any higher time frame trading right now. I'm just patiently waiting for the next high time frame setup to take place. What I am working on is I'm doing, any of the trading that I'm doing is mostly intraday trading. And I know that this is not something any of you guys want to hear because it's kind of boring or whatever, but this is legitimately good advice. And these boring days where there's not a whole lot of momentum or volatility in the markets, these are the days where people are going to get bored, give up, going to check out, and they're going to bring their attention to something else, right? Where can I get my dopamine today, right? They're going to go seek that out. If you stay focused and stay locked in some manner, you're going to have, that is legitimately going to be an edge for you when volatility returns later this year. So it's not always staying locked in. For me, isn't always a question of I'm cranking out 62 trades a day, right? I'm definitely not trying to overtrade right now. But the idea is that I'm doing a lot of the groundwork, all the kind of boring, maybe some accounting stuff, some tax stuff, right? Some of the kind of boring things that I didn't want to do 6 months ago, now's the time to get all that shit done so that you're ready to go later on in the year. So, yeah, hopefully that rundown kind of makes sense. It's more or less, a reiteration of what I've already been saying. I'll check chat here in a second and catch up with the boys. But, yeah, macro, pretty straightforward, right? I do have, from a setup standpoint, I can kind of rehash the high time frame, setups really quickly, but the main trade setups I think that you're looking for, I'm going to have more detail in the medium time frame section, but to rehash some of this stuff, right? And we'll move over to a different macro chart here in a second. Let's turn this off. Okay. The main kind of plans is that, this is like a pretty logical buy the dip zone for me. So, call it, anywhere from like, call it 90K, right? Realistically, it's probably a tiny bit lower than 90K. Who knows, right? This is kind of the, if we could rinse and repeat what we've already done, I'm going to send it, right? I am prepared for a scenario where we do a more of a shallow pullback, even a medium pullback, right? This is, I hate to be the cringe, order flow shiller, right? But this is why, all the flow stuff matters to me so much, right? Like predicting the level every now and then, I'll just like call 75K or whatever, but it's not a reliable approach for me to predict levels. Having an idea of it could be this, could be this, could be this, and then waiting and watching when we actually trade into those levels, right? I mean, that's why we present the plans in this way. I know that if you're less experienced, you see me and it's just like, wow, this guy probably doesn't know anything. He's just drawing 3 by the dip plans so that he's right no matter what, right? Like, it's not about that, right? It's about having the plans so that so that I'm not a pussy when the dip comes around, right? That's essentially what it is. Like, it could be one of 3. I'm going to be prepared for all of them, right? Hopefully that makes sense to you from a educational standpoint. So let's pause here. I'll check up with chat, and then let us probably move over to this chart next. All right. There's edge everywhere, no doubt, Daytona. Glad to hear it, Fern. Partha, I could walk through that another time. I don't really want to. Been working on I've been working on a lot of paperwork these days. Hopefully frees up some of the time. Look, guys, you only have so much time and energy in the day, and realistically, in the days where you're trading a lot, it will suck up a lot of your time and energy, right? And it's pretty common that I get behind on like all my kind of boring stuff in the frothy periods. So the more boring stages in the markets are where I get everything together, right? Maybe make sure that I'm on top of my deductions or any of the kind of boring shit that you need to be doing as a business operator. Before I move forward, I got 165 of you in here and 27 likes. Press that like button for me. Appreciate it. All right, how do you have so much conviction in the seasonality argument? Well, we're pattern, recognizing creatures, right? That is our nature, to be, to hunt patterns. We're really good at pattern recognition, human beings are. So that's really what it comes down to, right? There's the repeatable pattern that I've experienced over my years trading, and then there's the kind of, logic framework of it, right? Every year you want to apply a different kind of, different context to it, right? In this context, the primary reason why I don't expect us to trade up is we should have already traded up, successfully if we were going to. The amount of spot Bitcoin that has been bought this year is astronomical, right? People don't really realize it, like Doc had that quote that he's been using that a huge chunk of Michael Saylor's entire Bitcoin stack was bought this year, like the majority of it. And that's the theme for a lot of these Bitcoin accumulators, right? So I think that we should have already traded up. That's applying the current context, right? And then if you just apply the kind of, if I just look at this from a no context standpoint and just like a big picture framework, right? I've always used this same idea, and the more I teach it, the more I see other people, saying the same shit basically. But you look at Q1 and Q4 as your volatility quarters, right? And you look at Q2 and Q3 as your low vol quarters, right? That is the pattern that has repeated over and over again in my time trading, and you want to view it that way, right? And the beauty of all this too, guys, right? Let's say I'm just dead wrong. I just answered this exact question in the Paragon. Let's say this month we just send, right? And we just we get the impulse that we're thinking comes later in the year, and we just get it in here in July. It's win-win for me, right? I'm not hedged. I'm not short or anything right now. I'm spot long. I am risking drawdown if currently, because I'm not hedged. I am risking drawdown if we were to do some sort of pullback. So that's the answer to your question, guys. If I'm wrong, I win. If I'm right, I'll be setting myself up to win more, like bigger in the future. Any thoughts? Okay, so I'll go through the rest of the questions and then we'll kind of move our way into the next topic. Any thoughts on the fact that perp book is green at range highs, historically been strong selling at these levels? When you say perp book is green, you mean like the order book skew? I don't know what you mean by that exactly. Yeah, so like historically, pretty much all these kind of macro ranges that we've ever had. Let's go to a cleaner chart really quickly. Every macro chart, or every macro range is going to be created through suppression and supply, right? When you look at, if you guys can go and look back at this on your own time, right? All these, swing points, the book is very, very heavy on the ask, right? It's that simple. So the amount of spot that has been bought, in this, basically in this entire stage right here, there's been so much Bitcoin that's been bought, right? So I essentially think that we will pull back and then we will see that leg up that everyone wants to see after that. Okay. Will you make that order fill video? I already made it, brother. I just need to decide when I'm going to share it. Yeah, you guys, if you weren't here at the very beginning of the stream, I've got some wild order flow and profile, VWAP, etc. videos in the works. Anyone know if Sailor's hedging? Look, it's probably not even possible for him to hedge, really. Right? Hedging with directional derivatives is dog shit, right? Using perps and futures sucks. There's no way that he's using perps and futures, right? So, is there a liquid enough options market for him to trade out billions of dollars? No. So the answer is that he's just spot long, and yeah, he's Magus mode, right? I'm Sailor mode is how we should really be wording it, right? If I go into drawdown on my spot and I don't pull off a hedge in time, it is what it is. I'm not going to sweat it because I have that conviction that we're just going to go higher. Okay. Let me read through the rest of the chat. Yeah, I figured that's what you meant. What up, XO? What up? Okay. We got one more question, and then we'll get into medium time frame here in a second. Actually, we'll do VWAPs. We'll VYAP, and then we'll do medium. You always preach patience and not getting chopped up by the market noise. What's the one psychological nugget that helped you to conquer overtrading and stay disciplined? Well, I mean, for a question like that, guys, I could say a lot of things, right? So the quickest kind of answer that I could say, definitely focus up, everybody, right? You look at the chart and you see this exact lesson, right? The majority of markets are not impulse oriented, right? The majority of it is bracketing, building out ranges. So everybody is so focused on trying to catch these moves that when you don't realize that the majority of it is not those moves, that you just get chopped up and then the move comes, right? So for me, to answer that question, there's probably a shitload of things I could say, to be honest, but probably one of the best things I could say is that you just have to accept that markets are range bound the majority of the time, right? And that will, once you really understand that, probably 85-90% of the time that markets are just chopping, your FOMO and sense of having missed the move isn't really there as much, right? So that's probably the best thing I could say, right? Is that I'm not worried at all about missing impulse moves. They're such short-lived windows, right? And I trade full-time, right? So I do have the luxury of not having to worry about missing it because of that. I understand, right? If you guys have jobs and stuff, you definitely feel more of a sense of FOMO. For a lot of you guys, your best bet for catching the momentum then is to be spot long and then trade intraday or lower time frame, rotationally in the meantime. But another thing I could add to that, right? That's not a psychological lesson. That's more of a market dynamics lesson, right? Market ranges, right? So that eliminates some of your FOMO when you know that, it's not really going to be trending all the time. For the next kind of piece that's actually really psychological is, once you actually stack up some wins or run up some accounts, build up some confidence, right? Once you have confidence in your trading, you won't have that sense of I'm a loser because I missed the trade so much, right? Now, I trade Bitcoin full time, so I don't miss like that many moves. But whenever I do like just miss a completely obvious move, I don't sit there and dwell on it too much, right? Like, you know, I know that there's going to be plenty of other opportunities for me, and I'm just ready to move forward. So we'll digress from that. It is aggregated heat map. One Exo Duo stream. We haven't done one in a while. I think the last time we did a stream would probably have been over a year ago for sure. Maybe he's down sometime. Is it reasonable to expect equal highs at 10.7 will get run before a deeper correction? It's totally possible, right? Like, to be clear, just because a lot of my plans are us trading down, like, I'm not shorting, like, I'm not trying to catch that downside move, right? It's just like, you know, if we trade down there, the likelihood of wanting to buy it for me is extremely high. So could we take out, you know, when you're trying to ask yourself questions like, here's how you start to weave actual probabilities into your shit without any sort of math background, right? Focus up, nerds. You got equal highs or whatever, and you wonder to yourself, like, you know, we're right here. What's the likelihood that we're going to take out these highs? Here is one of the simple ways that you can ask yourself that. If the kind of downside targets are like here and here and here, and then your upside target is here, what's closer? It really is that fucking simple, guys. If you're closer to this price point, it by default makes it a higher probability of you trading to here first, just because it's just easier to get there. It really is that simple. Now, when you look at this, it's like, that's not a framework where it's like, okay, I know this is a 66% chance. I obviously don't know anything exact, but it's a good framework for you. You know, I mostly apply that to lower time frame, right? If price is here, and there's an anomaly here and then an anomaly way down here, I'm probably going to target the closer anomaly first and then the further away one, just because it's closer and easier to get there. So is there a decent chance that we'll take out the highs? For sure. Do I think that it's a decent, like, you know, should you be trading that up move? Probably not. Not unless you pull back further. If you pull back to 105 or something, then maybe you trade that move, right? But I would not be longing 108 to take profit at 110, right? I'd rather miss that move and then maybe even look to short it, if anything, right? Okay. You trade inside the range or look for breakout? Well, I can tell you don't really know me that well, but asking that question, I do both, right? I trade reversion in the ranges and momentum in the trends, right? I adapt to whatever is going on. So most of the time I'm a reversion trader because that's what markets mostly do. What you look for when trading lower time frame on a regular basis? That's such an open-ended question, brother. Everything on your screen, right, you know, is what I'm looking at basically. If you guys ask more specific questions, you're going to get better answers, right? Generic questions get generic answers. Could you add a third possibility of tagging 116 before a correction resumes? Yeah, 100%. There's no part of me that's praying for us to go down or really even thinks that, you know, we need to trade down. It's not like we have to trade down, boys. Us trading up first and then trading down, right? So a lot of people are really caught up on like, well, Magus, like, what if we trade over 110K? Is your summertime chop thesis invalidated? And it's like, no, we could do this and then still do this, right? There's, you know, chop, you know, look at over the past couple of years what chop could be, right? Chop could be just going basically sideways, right? Chop could be just absolute bears fully in control, just nuking and dumping on everybody, right? This was a rough range for anybody that was bullish, right? So there's different versions of chop. You could have a scenario where we trade up here, trade here, and this could be summertime chop where you're just like super bullish the whole way through, but you're not. When I say chop, the distinguishing characteristic here is not about up or down necessarily. It's about sideways, right? It's about a lack of impulse and momentum. Okay. They're asking questions today. Is it true that high time frame and low time frame market structure works in the same way? 100%. 100%. There's just, you know, there's more variance and more randomness in high time frame, but it's, yeah, you know, the way that market microstructure works on a 1 second is exactly the same as how it works on like a monthly chart. You never long the breakout, as more likely to fail. If you were to look at my entire portfolio of trades I've ever taken in my career, a very small percentage of them have been breakout trades, and then an even smaller percentage of that have been successful breakout trades. I almost never successfully breakout trade, no. My style of breakout trading is to just basically not buy I buy the opposing side of value and wait. Okay. Are you in the camp that alt season is happening, but it's happening with TradFi stocks linked to crypto? No, I think that's dumb to call that alt season. Yes, clearly there's a lot of demand in stonks for crypto, right? It's not uncommon that you see kind of a divergence between stonk appetite and crypto appetite. I think that will translate over to us in the future. How do you size when long but expecting chop? You put everything into Bitcoin and chill, basically, right? That's what I did. I have a pretty good Bitcoin stack these days. I can share templates in the future. I don't want to deal with it right now. What's the TPO setting on this 12-hour? These aren't TPOs. These are just fixed range. So I'm just drawing the range. I choose when it starts and I choose when it ends. These are volume profiles. So they're fixed range volume profile. Can I know your current limit orders for buy and sell, or are you yet to decide? I don't ever do that, right? So if you guys are assuming you're talking about like, my higher time frame plans, you'll never see me like leaving resting orders over here. Leaving resting orders is really, really, really dumb, guys. I know that maybe there's a couple people out there that make it work. Most people that do that stuff are just going to get absolutely blown the fuck out one day, right? Look, everybody listen the fuck up right now. Listen up. Sure, I can clearly tell you that this is an obvious level where I want to pay attention to, right? But what happens when we trade down into here and then some guy on Binance pukes 10,000 Bitcoin long and we do this? Does that mean that this level didn't matter, right? No, it just means that some guy fucked up and we're going lower because of him, right? So it's not about like, you don't ever leave resting orders and try to predict that this is going to be the level. You set alerts here and you say, yo, if we trade into 92K, I want to be watching, because this is an area where I expect momentum loss to the downside to start to turn around and start to set up into a long. So I never leave resting orders for high time frame. For low time frame, I leave resting orders in the book mostly for exits, not for entries. All right, what else we got? Teach me to deal with uncertainty. It's one of the hardest things, man. Look, there's two types of games in life. There are finite games, which have a start and a stop point, and then there's infinite games. It's the worst infinite signal you've ever seen, but we're gonna not care. When you play chess, basketball, any standard game, it has a clear objective, a clear starting point, a clear ending point. There is a level of certainty that exists in here because all the rules and everything is fixed and controlled. And to use a simple example, let's say I'm playing tennis and it's one-on-one. In one-on-one tennis, I have a pretty good I have a strong control of the outcome for that, right? I can just overwill that person and just be better than them and beat them. That's in a fixed game, a finite game, right? In an infinite game like trading, there's no winning and losing. Well, there's just only losing, right? Winning is you just existing and keeping moving forward and continuing to stack up a little bread here and there, right? And then losing is you quitting or giving up, you know, or running out of money. In trading, everything is uncertain because when I play tennis, like I just said, right, I have control over the outcome. I could just be better than that guy. I could take the best trades that have ever existed in the fucking world in an infinite game, and I have zero control over the outcome, right? I could take the best trades over and over again, the best trade, best trade, best trade. And then what happens when something random happens, like Trump comes out and tweets something against my position and I just got fucked, right? All my those trades were perfect trades, but I still lost anyways. And it's because as a trader, you basically, as a normal retail trader that's not doing manipulation shit, right? It's the caveat I should throw in there. If you're a normal person, you have no outcome, no control over your outcome, right? You just put the bet on and you say, this is a logical bet. It's worth taking the risk and I'm going to send it. So as traders, you just have to come to the conclusion and accept it that you have no control over the outcomes. And it's one of the hardest things about trading for sure. So many other elements of life, we either do actually have control over the outcome or we are somehow able to convince ourselves we have control over the outcome, right? A lot of instances you don't have that much control when you just convince yourself you do. In some instances you actually have like a lot of control over outcomes. So think about it from that framework, right? Some things can be controlled in life, but a lot of things can't. And trading is one of those things where all you're trying to do is just take the best bets you can and hope it works out for you. But you could take the worst trades in the world and have them work, and you could take the best trades in the world and have them not work. It's all random at the end of the day, right? It's just a roll of dice. I think that's a pretty good rundown on that topic, and I'm praying that that will help at least 3 of you in the chat today deal with the randomness and uncertainty of all this shit. All right, I don't want to spend too much time on some of these topics, so I might be selective about what questions we ask here. For those emotionally fragile when underwater, what's the mindset shift to go from being soft to stone cold killer? All right, so I mean, you know, there's gonna be times when you know, when things go against you. I didn't end up posting this trade in the Paragon because I didn't get around to it. It was too busy yesterday, but I had a long setup that didn't really go my way, and I just wasn't a bitch about it. I just turned it into a win anyways, right? So, you know, to answer your question, for a lot of you guys, you're probably going to be better off, you know, trading smaller is one of your best ways to overcome the fear of, oh, I'm underwater and I can't add on to an underwater position, right? When sometimes you're actually supposed to be doing that. So really, it just comes down to time, you know, and, you know, you can visualize some of these things, right? My friends from 2020, Adam Lee, taught me, or Ling, I think was his last name. He's doxed, that's why I'm saying it. He taught me that he visualized a lot of his lower time frame trades going against him. So he would start opening it, and then, you know, as he's scaling up the trade, envision going underwater, and then that makes it less scary when you do, and you're kind of prepared for it. And you've got the plan, like, oh, I could go underwater on this trade, but it's not necessarily the end of the world. You will go under if you are a scalper or a lower time frame trader. You will go underwater a lot of the times, especially at the very beginning of your positions. Shouldn't you be prioritizing your scalping more since you can more than consistently be profitable waiting for macro swings? Jonathan, I said that earlier, right? I'm not really scalping. There's just not enough volatility to scalp, but I'm intraday trading, right? So just day trading. So Mag Weekly newsletter rugged, kind of, but not really. I pulled the plug on it to restructure it all, basically. It's going to come back better than ever. Actually, was working on a lot of that this morning before the stream. I'm going to have a larger team writing, so it won't just be me. There's going to be a bunch of people that will be contributing to it from Twitter, or maybe not a bunch, but a couple good lads. And yeah, keep an eye out though. You will want to sub to it whenever it does come out. Hopefully next Monday will be the official release date. Okay, understand your argument that if price is closer to one target, the chances that it hits are increasing, but if asks, yes, of course, right? Sam, I'm not trying to say that if we're closer to price that we're just destined to trade to there, right? It's just like that's the first part of the framework. The second part could be asks, like you said. I wasn't trying to like do a full breakdown on how to do probabilities, because realistically, most people won't really retain what I'm trying to say. And honestly, my probability weighting is one of my edges for sure. So I don't, maybe want to be a little careful about how I teach some of the game theory things. Can you please share your VWAP settings? Would really appreciate it. All my VWAPs are everything shared on the Paragon. I just use standard time based and anchored and rolling. And none of my stuff is anything special, man. It's just standard time. Or the likes at 1 out of 3 likes. That's crazy, right? 170 of you in here and 71 likes. Press that like button. Got it. If you don't leave resting orders, do you wait for confirmation? No, guys. I don't want to do a whole confirmation explanation right now because it's tiresome. But if you're waiting for confirmation, you're gonna be fucking sideline Sally the rest of your life. All my best trades, confirmation starts to come through after the position's already built up or after it started to bounce from my long or whatever, right? That's when I get confident, not in the moment when I first start buying. I've put out a ton of tweets about confirmation. I put out a bunch of videos and on that kind of stuff as well. It really is as simple as that, right? Like you make your plans, you put alerts on. When it comes into your level, you go and watch. If the setup is there, you take it. If it's not, you don't. Nothing wrong with uncertainty. Allows for one to be aware of all the possibilities and adapt to them on the fly. I agree with you, Tyler, but most human beings are not good at dealing with that, right? Even myself, I really have come to accept the uncertainty of all this stuff in a lot of ways. It doesn't bother me really anymore, but there's a lot of periods where it did bother me, right? People all want everything to be 1 + 1 = 2. Everything is black and white in the human being's mind, but the reality is that life is all gray. Can you talk about how to reduce fees and slippage? Which is the cheapest platform to use? So if you want to reduce fees, it's just, do whatever game the exchange gives you. If they want you to hold their token, hold their token. If they want you to do more monthly volume, do more monthly volume. That's how you drop your fees. How really, I don't really imagine that many of you have huge issues with slippage, assuming you're trading. If you're trading liquid contracts, you're not going to have big slippage issues, right? It's only if you're trading shit coins. I don't know how to help you not get slipped on chain, right? Change your slippage percentage on chain. With liquid derivatives and stuff, like look at the order book. I really don't think too many of you are going to have a whole lot of slippage issues these days. Tennis mentioned. Tennis and golf are like really easy examples because of the one-on-one nature to it. If I use basketball, for example, with that explanation, there's extra levels of complexity because you're much less in control over the outcome in basketball because of your teammates. Hey Magus, thanks for always sharing such high quality content and insight. No problem, brother. Do you have any thoughts on Fartcoin? I'll cover Fartcoin when we get to alts here in a minute. Give us like probably 10-15 more minutes and we'll probably move over to alts here soon. What's your average scalp size in points on Bitcoin? In points? I don't know what you mean. Like, how am I supposed to translate that over? The last time I used points was back when I traded on Sierra charts back in 2019, 2020. I mean, the points on my trades were like in the millions and shit. But I mean, that doesn't translate anything over to you guys. I don't know how to answer that question, bro. You mean, when you say scalp size, that sounds like position sizing, but then you say points, and then it looks like how the average distance. I'm not going to tell you my average size. It's nothing crazy. It's just in like the low, mid 6 figures nominally. The average percentage move is, the average percentage move on Bitcoin is probably less than 1% right now. Yeah, I mean, I would say that my average intraday rotation is probably a percent. But that has been increasingly going down, right? When I was intraday trading a lot back in like February and March, my average intraday rotation was like 4 or 5% because that's how volatile Bitcoin was. What's your nuanced strategy for taking profit on a big move just beyond locking in, especially given your public struggles with enjoying the fruits of your labors? Damn, I'm too open about everything in my life, boys. Yeah, you're pretty much everybody else that like has an audience or whatever tries to curate everything, but I'm just like too open about everything. look, remember that lesson that we were saying earlier, right? The markets are always, markets are mostly range bound, and then you get impulse and you go range again, right? This is the two regimes that markets exist in. When we go into the impulses, right, and trends is when, the gains come, right? That's when the big growth comes on your port. I'm always mindful of the idea that, after Bitcoin is legged up, eventually legging up is going to lead to momentum loss. So that's really where that comes. I'm identifying and paying attention to when is Bitcoin starting to chop up and lose its momentum and then build out its next range. Once that happens, it's time to start to shift the mindset away from max greed to maybe a little bit more defensiveness. Sometimes, for Bitcoin, it's going to be more along those lines. For altcoins, a lot of the times how I decide when to sell the altcoin is, I shit you not, if it's been going up and then all of a sudden you just have one day where it goes up a lot, that's the day I sell, right? Now, there's been so many instances where we buy something, it kind of chugs along steady, and then it legs up a lot and I close it out. Sometimes it does this and that's the Smiko top and then it is down only from there. Sometimes it sells off and then it bounces a little higher and then it goes down only. I don't really give a fuck though if I'm this guy selling or if I'm this guy. Honestly, a lot of times I'm just like more comfortable being this guy and not like, cut up the time in the trade. So that's kind of the mindset I have. As obvious as it sounds, honestly, a lot of my really good altcoin exits have just been, oh wow, OM just went up 17% in 2 hours. I guess I'm going to close it out. And then OM went down only and got rugged and, went to -0 after that, right? Okay. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, get this dude to 15K. My Doc AI is cooking in the chat. ETH's done a good job holding above. Thoughts against Bitcoin. I'm not really ready to move over into alts, but any opportunity to bully ETH I will normally capitalize on, so we'll do that really quickly for you. The coin is bad. That simple. I don't care about random days where ETH does better than Bitcoin. The aggregate is down only, so that's the mindset for me. I love ETH. I use ETH all the time, right? But I'm going to keep most of my wealth in Bitcoin for obvious reasons, not in ETH, right? ETH is a utility token for me. That's it. I keep what I, essentially what I need, period. I'm not a fan of ETH in any ways. As somebody who came into crypto as an ETH head, made a huge chunk of their original gains off of ETH, right? I like ETH in those regards, but I'm a performance-based, trader. I'm not looking to buy something that looks like this. ETH has not been good since literally last bull cycle, right? The entire current cycle, ETH has been shit. So we'll digress from there. All right, I'm going to move over. I'm going to finish up chat, and then we'll do medium time frame next. Discord's popping off. All right, after nearly a decade in this fierce market, what has been the most transformative shift in your learning process or how you absorb market info to stay at the top? When you guys ask these kind of questions, it is hard to answer them off the top of my head because there are, there's a lot of different things I could say. Something that has been really transformative for me with my trading is to say that really just going back to that lesson around accepting the randomness and stuff, right? Everybody thinks that they're smart. People think they're going to come into these markets and they're going to rinse them. Or I'm going to come in here, I'm going to discretionarily trade these markets. I'm going to come in here with my math and my quant approach and I'm going to rinse these markets. And pretty much everybody that comes in thinking that they're going to win just loses, right? So the most powerful thing that you can always maintain is the humility and understanding that you're one step away from it all, from ruining it all. You're one trade away from never being able to make a profitable trade again, right? Like you got to have that ego to have the belief, but where people really trip up, at least on social media, is the humility side, right? If you're not humble, you're going to get clapped. It's that simple. So yeah, humility and patience are probably the things that have kept me in the game as long as I have, right? I don't really view myself as being better than other people or smarter or anything. I'm just more patient. It's probably one of the defining things. I really do believe to my core too that if you think that you're smarter than other people and right, your identity is built on thinking you're smart, you are destined to be far more stupid, right? There's actually like a wisdom and intelligence in saying I'm not that smart. It like frees you up to actually be more, more bright because of the humility. It's a good question, Nico. I could say a whole lot about a topic like that, to be honest, man. I got you, Lucifer. No problem, Rowdy. I'm just keeping it 100, I like your PFP, Rowdy, actually. That's very close to my profile picture for Counter-Strike. You think Hype lost its momentum since April? It's still been relatively strong. We'll move over into Alts here in a second. I own Hype still, so I'll cover it. You use order book depth? Yes, I do. Can I get your aggro template? All my templates and everything are in Paragon. I've shared a lot of these things publicly as well at other points. They're just outdated, probably. All right, let's run through some alts. Okay, we'll do Hype first. I still own a Hype bag. I would estimate that it's probably only about 2 to 3% of my overall port right now, so I'm pretty underweight on this thing. Yeah, it's pretty clear that there is some level of momentum loss taking place here. I don't think that, you want to necessarily be aping this thing hard at $40 or whatever, right? But buying the dip on this definitely makes sense. I've been taking, a lot of profits on my original swing trade on this thing. No, my average exit's pretty much where Bryce is at right now, probably around 38 bucks. So I didn't do anything super crazy with this trade. I think that you're basically looking to buy the dip on this one though, unless there's a really stark meta shift and demand doesn't return to this. But really the only reason why I would see Hype doing poorly is if like the large centralized exchanges really came and ate their lunch, which I don't really see happening, but we'll have to wait and see on that. Decent coin overall. I know that you guys are interested in Altcoin. I think that the Altcoin chart looks pretty rough right now, and it's the same kind of argument. Basically, the name of the game for all alts is going to be you're looking to buy the dip if you're looking to buy them at all, right? You don't want to be positioning where they're at right now. I think that Altcoin will come back and be stronger than ever probably, because I think that Altcoin will be able to maintain mind share, and that's the most important thing for this coin to come back. So Fart will probably bounce back. I don't, there's just basically no reason to be, packing on risk on anything. I think the XRP looks, for whatever reason, the boomer coins are some of the best looking coins right now. So XRP and Ripple, probably a good chance that these guys are getting an ETF or some sort of bullshit coming their way, because yeah, they're holding up quite well right now. Curve. You guys are gonna, I'm not really interested in looking at a bunch of like random coins. I don't imagine Curve is gonna be great, right? Yeah, it's Jesus Christ. I mean, this shit tilts me when I see this. Like, you guys probably don't understand, but I mean, the tick sizing, like, what is Binance doing? What are they doing with, like, does nobody trade the Curve contract? Because I'm on a 15 minute and this looks like a fucking Satoshi chart from 2018. This is disgusting. It probably looks better on the non-perf, just so we are clear. Ever so slightly. Alright, what do we have to say about this one? Look, simple argument. If it looked like this, woo, you buy dips on that bitch. But honestly, it looks like ass, So, this is a no-go for me, most definitely, right? Does that mean that, I would never play this coin? No, it doesn't mean that, but I definitely would not be looking to trade this anytime soon or looking to buy the dip on it by any means, right? This thing, we'll come back to it in the future and it will be lower. The only reason why the aggregate of coins won't be lower in the future is if Bitcoin legs up a lot. So let me go ahead. You know what? I'm going to skip over that lesson. I've already dropped so many lessons on your foreheads today. If you know my plan around how I'm going to trade alts this year, lock it in on that, right? That's definitely the best schematic that anyone's going to give you. All right, what else we got? Markets humbling me was the best thing that ever happened to me. For sure, man. I mean, even if, honestly, guys, let's keep it 100. Even if you fail as a trader, the experiences that you'll go through in your quest to succeed will make you a better person. For sure. Thoughts on Chill House? Yeah, we're chilling in the house, bro. Sometime after alt discussion, maybe you could discuss pumps, upcoming lunch, and the effect it might have on chain. Well, look, homie, I'm not like the guy that you should be asking on-chain questions like that. If pump lists a token, what's that going to probably do on-chain? In the short term, that's almost going to for sure create the liquidity suck dynamic where a lot of on-chain coins will get obliterated because all the liquidity will be chasing that coin. The reality is that, should you guys probably be playing the pump coin? Probably not, right? It's probably going to come in at some massively high evaluation, and it's just a value extractive way for them to make more money. Is Say still alive? I don't think so. It's just, I just can't bull post any of these things, If it looked like this, I would go, damn. You can buy it. If it looked like this, I'd say buy it right now, right? But it looks like this. So it's just, bad coin. Oh, he meant Sui. Well, it's going to be the same thing, brother. I guess Sui looks better. Sui looks a lot better. Sui at least has like a local uptrend. Yeah, I don't dislike the way that Sui looks on high time frame, to be honest. This will probably be a big winner in Q4, to be honest. This will probably be a Q4 winner. Crow, bro, I don't want to look at this fucking shit. Looks like fucking hot garbage, honestly. What up, Stoic? The majority of chat is trolling me today. You're not the majority of chat, Lucifer. I know that in your world you're the majority of chat, but you're not. Is the AI narrative dead? Definitely not, bro. In crypto, maybe, but like AI in the Web 2 space is cooking bigly, right? AI is definitely on a massively, forward moving kind of path, a lot of momentum. Aave still strong these days? Yeah, we could look at Aave. Aave and Link we're always down to look at just because they're just OG Magus coins. The good old days of Aave getting listed and going up 2,000%. This coin looks pretty solid. For sure. High time frame, it looks decent. Obviously, it's at very significant resistance. Go to the quarterly. Looks really good on the quarterly as well. Monthly. Definitely a strong local uptrend from whenever the market had its, real swing point. Decent local uptrend. What was this? When did Bitcoin pull back? 22nd? Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So Aave looks really good to me. Structurally, looks good across the board. Say surprisingly a top performer for Q2. Say got pumped by a large YouTuber with blind, dumb followers. What about deaf, bro? Were they blind, dumb, and deaf? Most charts are chart requests are trolls nowadays. I swear to you guys, they're not though. And like everybody, listen up. Like Doc, I've been doing this for too long. I really don't think that they are. I really don't think that they're trolling most of the time. It's that a lot of you guys, you get you can't let go of things. That's what it is. You know, you bought this random altcoin 7 months ago, and you're still in it for some reason. You're wondering. You're coming on the stream, and you're wondering like, is Maggie's gonna tell me this thing will go up so I can sell it for break even or whatever, right? That's how do I know this, right? Because I've seen it over and over again in other people, and then I even went through that myself, right? I was the way that I round tripped my gains in 2018, like DCAing into dog shit. Like I know what you guys are going through, so I really don't think it's mostly trolling. I think it's pretty serious for the most part, which saddens me a little bit because it means like I say the same lessons over and over again on these streams, and it means that they're not always sinking in. Is the question? Oh, we drew a fractal. Ondo up only. You heard it here first. All right, so we had a question about Ondo. I don't dislike Ondo. I don't like it either. I think that this is probably what Ondo looks like. Let me drag it back a little further so it actually lines up with the time frame. This is a pretty realistic expectation for me with Ondo, is that chop it up and then eventually it goes up a lot, right? Because I think that Bitcoin does this and carries everything up. I don't want to look at Mog. I'll look at Pepe for you because I like Pepe. I mean, all the memes are just locally pretty weak. I think Bonk is probably the strongest locally out of all of them, but yeah, I'm not really optimistic on Pepe right now. I'm just gonna keep it 100 with you. You know, I've traded Pepe a lot. I don't. You know, the only argument that's favorable for these things is at least they went. You know, they're cheaper, quote unquote. But I need strength to want to play it. And this just doesn't qualify for me. Soul? Yeah, I mean, I kind of skipped over Solana. I have some. This is one of the only other things I have in my port right now. I'm really underweight Solana compared to what I once was. This used to be a big bag for me. Pretty light on it. Took a lot of profits. My main thesis for Solana is that it's probably not a terrible asset to allocate to if we're going to trend up, because it will go up alongside Bitcoin and everything. It'll probably go up more than Bitcoin will. But is the days of this thing being the supreme portfolio Giga Chad performer that it once was? I mean, for the people that were early, you didn't even have to be that early to it. Like, let's say you bought late, right? It still just outperformed everything and anything from that was liquid, at least, right? I'm not talking about your random shitcoin. Don't even come in the chat and say that right now, right? This thing just, you know, from the start of the trend to the end of the trend locally has been, you know, the best liquid play. I think that that's over now for this coin. Does that mean it won't go up? Probably not. It probably will go up, but it's just not something I want to be heavily allocated to anymore. My concern, and I've had this conversation with, I mean, the main guy that got me really bullish on Solana early on was Sting, and I had this exact conversation with him, like, and he's the one that said it to me. What if Solana plays out like ETH did? You know, from a pricing standpoint, ETH kept moving forward, the chain kept getting larger and more successful in all these ways, but the token appreciation didn't keep pace. So I don't want to be flat-footed on Solana. I locked in a lot of gains on it, and we'll maybe come back to it in the future. No problem, Seacoast. Happy to help, brother. I think that Bonk is probably the strongest. You know, maybe dips are for buying on this thing, but right now, you know, Bonk is probably set up to do a decent dip. If this is something you were bullish on, I could see wanting to buy the dip. You know, maybe the shallow dip is around 2 cents. Maybe the deeper dip is, you know, 1.5. I would probably be favoring the deeper dip on this thing. It's clearly one of the strongest locally out of all the memes. A lot of that has to do with them launching their own, you know, pump competitor, etc. Not charting FWOG for you. Nice try. I respect it, though. All right, we need to turn the music back on. Okay, a lot get caught bag holding or just echo chamber from fellow hodlers, takes voices of others to talk them out of it sometimes. Yeah, I mean, to quote Proposition Joe, right? A man learns best when he gets burned. You guys need to learn through pain of round tripping and loss. DCing into dog shit bags. That's how you learn these lessons. You're not going to really learn it just from me telling you. Do you treat your spot BTC as a trade or an investment? It's a great question. A little bit of both. I'm a trader to my core. So the idea of taking profits and, you know, managing things and stuff is always going to be something I want to do. I treat my S&P, NASDAQ, and Bitcoin exposure as just the long-term areas where I'm just going to continuously park more and more money as I make more. So it's somewhere between the two, because at my core I'm a trader. But yeah, I mean, I do treat it kind of like an investment, but I just like am more of an active manager with it. That's why I call it portfolio management. It's somewhere in between investing and trading. Good question, bro. You close that side panel? You mean this? Is that bugging you? About this random altcoin Solana 2 years ago, bag held. Tell me it's going to $300. If you bag held Solana, that probably was pretty painful. Tons of chart recommendations. People are underwater, want to hear something positive. Yeah, I know that's what's going on, and I'm not gonna lie to anyone. I'm gonna tell them it's coin shit. Mentioned CRO because it ran some of the BS news. Could be good fade. Okay. Yeah, I've never traded that coin once in my life, to be honest. Like the stream, folks. Damn, I got Lucifer promoting the likes. That's how you know that my like ratio is fucked up. Press like, boys. Which alt would be the best intraday scalps? I don't know off the top of my head, because I don't really scalp that much these days. I mostly just intraday trade Bitcoin. You're looking for high activity, high volatility. Today, ETH is probably a good coin to scalp. But you want to go filter by tick rates. Go Google the Orion scanner and then let it tell you what to scalp. Do you think Solana ETH topped? I don't want to speculate on any of that stuff, guys. Are you always right? Well, brother, I'm not always right. Been watching your streams for 2+ years, and you predicted and traded almost all the tops and bottoms. Massive props. I appreciate that, bro. It's not, execution in the, analysis and stuff aren't always the same things, right? Yeah, like a lot of my calls and stuff are pretty fucking good, right? My trading is mostly good, but I fuck up, right? I definitely make mistakes all the time, so I don't come on these streams and think that I'm over here, just trading everything absolutely flawlessly. I think a lot of it, I've traded Bitcoin for such a long time and had such an emphasis on always watching Bitcoin. I've always watched Bitcoin as the main thing. Even when I was a noob, I watched Bitcoin, right? A lot of you guys came in, you didn't pay attention to Bitcoin until somebody told you to, right? You looked at alts mostly. I always watched Bitcoin. That's been a big help for me, right? Because you learn a lot as you watch the same asset trade over and over again. I just think there's kind of like a rhythm or like a flow that you can get synced up with the market. And a lot of the lessons I taught earlier, right, like acknowledging you're mostly ranging and very few trends come, like, so all these kind of really simple lessons can help you be on the right side of things. So I'm just very fortunate that I've been able to be on the right side of direction and momentum for Bitcoin for a long time. Basically, ever since I got absolutely demolished at this point in time. This was where I got demolished on this one. And then I went and drawdown on this one as well. And then other than that, I've been on the right side of momentum pretty much. So a lot of it, it's the proposition Joe quote, right? A man learns best when he gets burned. I have learned to defend myself and not just like round trip all my gains, because I've done that enough times. I've lost enough money to where I am not doing it anymore, right? Or I'm gonna fight. I'm going to fight my best to not round trip any of the gains in the future. Could have pulled up Fog just to laugh. All right, we could do that. We could do that. Oh, Jesus. You know, and like I remember when all the boys were just printing with this thing and it was going up only, and I told you guys, everyone was asking me every day, like, when are you guys gonna buy FWOG? And I would say, like, I'm not gonna buy it because the moment I buy it is gonna be the top for all you guys. So I'm gonna let you guys keep winning. But all you need is, you know, a couple of these lessons in your life. This chart happens to you once or twice in your life, and you're either gonna quit or you're gonna learn. One of the two. And the lesson with this is that you say, fuck it. I don't care if I sell the top, right? If I bought here and sold here, I still made 300%. Who gives a shit if I didn't make, you know, a 100x? Win's a win. The O'Brien scanner, nice. What's the difference between being a scalper and a day trader? Trade frequency. Like, so yesterday I scalped and I took like almost 200 trades on Bitcoin. And then when I intraday trade, it's like 2 trades, you know, that's the difference. I ended up scalping yesterday, not by choice, but because the trade didn't work. So the only way to make it out without taking a loss was to scalp around it. So that's what I did. No, Brian Scanners got me. Thank you, Phil. Appreciate it, brother. Appreciate it. Well, I'm glad to help. Hey Mag, is your style influenced by books like The Disciplined Trader by Mark Douglas? I read that a long time ago. It is and it isn't, right? So the main issue that I have with Mark Douglas's view is that he wants you to rely on stats and a mechanical approach, right? So Mark Douglas teaches you that if you build out your system from 1 to 2, if you build this system out and you know that this system works, now you just no longer care about, was it a plus or a minus trade? Because I just know that the expectancy is positive, so I'm just going to keep sending the trades. The problem with that is that most of you are never going to actually be able to do this part of it, in all honesty, right? You might know what your trade expectancy is, but you'll never know what your probabilities are. It's just the truth. So the flaw with his way of thinking I'm not trying to shit on him or anything. I don't dislike him or anything. I've read his book, but I just think that you can't expect to rely on the mechanical stats and all the nerd shit that much, because you're not going to do a good enough job of building those things out for you, right? You're not a fucking Jane Street quant, and it's important that you recognize that. So it's basically where I'm at with that kind of stuff, right? Is that, yeah, you want to let yourself be free and of the kind of outcome as much as possible and focus on the input, but the input shouldn't be purely statistic based or mechanical based. Lucifer, #1 fan in no time, confirmed. No problem, Coleman. No problem. Remember the 2021 days of 3,000 trades? Yeah, that was mostly on alts, though. But yeah, you guys would probably shit your pants when you hear me say this. Back in 2023, I used to put in anywhere from like 1,000 to some days 5,000 trades in a day. The caveat here is that one directional trade is like 50 trades. That's why. Or 50 to 100 trades, because I'm scaling in and out so much. So each execution is counted as a trade. That's why. Dumped my you got the mod, man. You're gonna have to exercise your power over the chatters. Thanks for your view. No problem, brother. Yeah, I generally don't like very many of the trading books I've read. I don't recommend to go out and read trading books. I think that most of you guys are better off reading a random, go read a guy's newsletter, go watch a guy's YouTube video, and then watch the fucking chart and click buttons yourself, right? I don't like theoretics behind a lot of the books that I read. As I got more experience, I started to take a lot of issue with theoretics. Is my guy ever charting things like MSTR or coin? Not really, guys. From an equities standpoint, I mostly am just a boomer and just trade the indexes or just invest in the indexes. I don't individually pick stonks anymore. I could have done really well over the past year by picking stocks. I could have just bet on some of the crypto plays and made money, but yeah, I don't really do a whole lot of active trading. For the record, I started with equities and commodities before I traded crypto. But now I mostly just teach these as investments where I park money, right? The things that you see at the top of the list are what I've, this is my port right here, basically for the boomer side, Nas, S&P, and silver. It's the biggest cheat code in reading order flow. The biggest cheat code for reading order flow is probably when you know how to ignore 99% of the order flow information and highlight the actual 1% that is useful. Right? You see all this shit on your screen. I don't care about hardly any of these things. I'm looking for a couple of key pieces of information, and then I act off of that, right? Mostly what you see with flow, if you read the tape all day long, the tape is pretty much useless, right? There's like going to be 3 things that come through on the tape that are actually useful. So learning to filter. Or Jordan Paragon. What's your opinion on Elliott waves? I feel like you're mostly trolling with this one, but I think that Elliott waves and a lot of these things are just too discretionary, right? Yeah, I'm a discretionary trader, but it's all founded in some sort of logic, right? Like drawing random fucking waves and shit on my chart, right? Like I don't believe in any of that kind of stuff, you know? I honestly believe more in trading moon cycles and stuff than I do Elliott waves. Like I would give me, say I have to pick a dumb strategy, I'm picking moon cycles, 100%. Trading books not good, I agree. Psychology books are preferred, 100%. I don't know how to say your name, Tyre, but totally agree, right? If you want to read books to help learn, focus on psychology, guys, 100%. That's the only type of stuff that I really have any interest in reading anymore these days. I love reading different psychological books and papers and stuff. Helps you a lot with trading, helps you a lot with life, helps you a lot with your mental health. It's just a W in general. What's your preferred execution? Depends on what style of trading I'm doing. I use a lot more market orders these days than I used to back in the day. Market in, limit out. It's probably the most generic way to answer the question. I use limit orders when I can, but honestly, a lot of the best, Bitcoin trades come along. I'm not sitting there fucking around with trying to chase or use limit orders or whatever, right? I'm just going to take because that's how you get the best fills, The best fills on Bitcoin are competitive, and I've learned that it's better to be a taker most of the time. You're trying to save a buck, trying to scale in with limit orders only to get a way worse fill on your average. Am I shouting into the void? Yeah, I got you. I just didn't want to talk about the ETF stuff, Cryptoski. That's really all it is. Just be patient. They'll lift Bitcoin up for us eventually. You just gotta be patient with it. Will you ever consider launching a second YouTube channel on cooking or dating? 2 things that I can't do. Nice job. No problem, Daytona. All right, my friends. That's probably a good stopping point for us. Probably wrap up the stream here. If you guys have any good, last second questions, I'll hang out and answer them. Otherwise, gonna go hit the gym really quickly and then finish up my work day. I've got meetings to go to this afternoon. That's gonna be really fun. Limit scaler is good 4 out of 5 times, but 1 time it sucks. It makes you hate yourself. I mean, just keeping it a buck right now, as somebody who's used a lot of passive orders over the days, because back in the day you really had to use passive orders, otherwise it really fucked your profitability on your trades back in the day. I'd rather just market in most of the time and limit out, because that's for liquid stuff, right? You guys know I don't really trade illiquid things. But yeah, I mean, for Bitcoin, for example, I'd much rather just be a taker. It's so rare that I'm going to slip the book more than just a couple of ticks. I end up getting way better fills that way. With passive orders, I'm always more tempted to break things up. And it's like market orders, I'll just slam 2 orders and slip a tiny bit and just get my fills. Instead of trying to be fucking safety Sam over here, I'm going to chase with 16 orders right now. And then I get 8 of them filled and then I'm pissed, you know? So, it's personal preference. Tomato, tomato, potato, potato. Any good recommendations on game theory books? Honestly, no. So if you guys have any shills on that, let me know, because I've never read any really good game theory books, I don't think. No problem, Nelly. No problem, Michael. Cheers, SR. What up, Charles? Thank you, Doc. Thank you, Doc. All right, guys. So that's it for me. I'm gonna pop out and move on with my day. Definitely a quick reminder, though, that, you know, I've got some pretty spicy education coming out on the YouTube. So if you aren't subscribed or whatever, you know, definitely sub or throw that notification bell on, because you're, you know, no bullshit, right? It's going to be like some of the best order flow videos you've ever seen. So yeah, I've been spending the past few years learning how to explain what it is I do. So now I know how to actually explain it properly. All right, my friends, that's it for me. I will see you guys next week. Good luck out